I'm smooth.
Now it's time for Toker Talk Radio, the voice of the marijuana nation.
What are you people? On dope?
Where you can toke.
I inhaled frequently.
Or you can talk.
I experimented with marijuana and didn't inhale.
Or you can toke and talk.
10 federal criminal penalties for possession of up to 1 ounce of marijuana.
While we talk about toke on Toker Talk Radio.
So, by the way, when it comes to pot, if you're 40 years old, you live in a log cabin in Oregon, you got 12 giant pot plants in your backyard, have a ball.
Live from beautiful Portland, Oregon at Rolla J Studios.
Hey, this is great. Just like cannabis.
Plus your calls live at 971-533-7111.
They're walking on their pants with their cap on backwards, listening to Enema Man and Snoopy Poop Dog.
What's to keep somebody from getting all potted up on weed and then getting behind the wheel? Gateway theory doesn't work. It's a reality.
Holland, is it real? Don't tease me.
We're locking up people that take a couple of puffs of marijuana, and the next thing you know, they got 10 years.
And now, here's your host, the guru of ganja graphics, the sultan of sativa statistics, and the worst nightmare of a reefer mad prohibitionist. A polite, perspicacious, productive pothead with a propensity for PowerPoint. Radical Russ Belville.
Hadouken! Hadouken!
Welcome back. Toker Talk Radio, Hour 2 is on the air. I'm your host, Radical Russ Belville, here at 420radio.org. Encouraging you to check out our new lineup, 420radio.org/schedule. We got all sorts of great shows coming up. Coming up at the next hour, 5 o'clock hour, we've got Jorge Cervantes TV. But I don't know if he's got a new episode yet, so we'll check that out coming up in... Oh, wait a minute. Is that next? Yeah, Jorge Cervantes TV. He does have one short video that he's uploaded, so we can check that out. Also, coming up later tonight, 8 o'clock, the third season debut of Big Daddy Fink's Funky Roller Rink. Yeah. Yes, we are very, very excited about that. Some new funk. This one is the Land of Funky Dances episode. All the tunes have to do with some sort of dance. So check that out. That's going to be a good time. All right. So like I said, I was at the Better People Educational Forum. It was at the Public Defender's Office in Multnomah County, 5th floor. So now I know where it is. You never know when you're going to need that information. And it was interesting. I was there. The moderator was Judge Gene Maurer from the Start Court, which is Multnomah County's drug court, basically. Then me, and then Sergeant Chris Kennedy, supervisor of the Drug and Vice Task Force for the Portland Police Bureau, who said over and over again, we don't go after marijuana. We're concentrating on heroin and meth and coke. That's what we're going after. And by the way, when I do these voices, I don't necessarily mean to disparage the guy. He was a nice guy. He was a very nice fella. It was also interesting to me how much different he was off stage than he was on stage. Now, I promised him I wouldn't say what he had to say, but I'm just going to say that the opinions on stage were different than the opinions off stage. That's all I'm going to say. I was also along on the panel with Dr. Michael Resnick, the medical director of addiction psychiatry at Portland's VA hospital. Now, I took some notes from these guys' presentations so that I could debunk some of this stuff because, it's a panel thing. I can't just jump up like Joe Wilson and say, you lie! Although there's numerous times that I wanted to. His presentation was entitled Medical Marijuana, the Evidence, with the quotes around medical, right? So you knew that was going to be fun. And then Amy Margolis, who's on the Portland Dispensary Advisory Committee, and she's worked in the public defender's office and such. So it was kind of like if you were going to, judge who was for and who was against. I was for, the cop was against, the doctor was, well, the doctor and Amy, Michael and Amy, pretty much kind of just focused on medical a lot. So, really, it was just me and the cop, and so it was a lot of fun that way. So we'll get into debunking a lot of the stuff they had to say. And in fact, while they were talking, I still had my laptop out, and my laptop was plugged in for the whole time, for the most part. And I have this little slideshow that runs when I'm at events that is just a montage of all the graphs I've ever done, like, how many people smoke pot, what gets them sent to rehab, etc. And they were running and changing every 3 minutes in the background while these guys were talking. And there's a couple times where they're saying something that is completely debunked by the chart that I have on the wall behind them as they're talking. So, for example, when the cop was talking about, well, he was using the Sabbath conjecture, right? Well, alcohol and tobacco, we only bring in they only bring in $40 billion in taxes, but it costs us $400 billion in drunk driving and all that, blah, 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 right? And as he's saying that, my graph from that Canada study showing that a tobacco smoker costs $800 a year, an alcohol drinker costs $165 a year, pot smoker costs $20 a year. That was right up on the screen, so that when he finished talking, I was able to jump right in and say, the reason this sounds so scary is because you keep confusing marijuana with alcohol and tobacco, which are toxic and addictive. People who get drunk get in fights, cause damage, wreck their cars. People who smoke cigarettes get lung cancer, have bad health. People that smoke pot eat Cheetos and laugh at stoner movies, right? The costs aren't there. And if there are costs, they exist now. You guys keep thinking that legalizing marijuana somehow invents marijuana. No, there are 11.9% of Oregon adults smoking pot now. So whatever it costs now. And we're not bringing in any tax money. And we're still spending money trying to stop it, and we're not stopping it. So if you could tell me what the costs are now, and you could tell me how much you expect the costs to go up, we'd have some number where we could rationally set what the tax would have to be to make up for that cost. But nobody will tell me what the cost of pot smokers are. Oh, we got plenty of this stuff. Hey, we're going all day with this, but we got some other stuff in today's show as well for hour 2. I got an extra radical rant for you. You know how I've been writing for High Times magazine. I got a gig now writing for Alternet. So I'm going to read you my latest Alternet rant. Stay tuned.
We'll be right back after these messages from our 420 friendly sponsors. Support these advertisers because their ad money goes straight to the Russ Belville Show. You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation.
Hey, Tokers and Tokettes, Radical Russ here to introduce you to my friend Matt and all the staff at Lush LED Lighting. Growing plants indoors can be a rewarding hobby, but electricity bills can go through the roof. Then you have to cool down all those big hot lights. It can drive a grower insane. With Lush LED Lighting, you can solve many of these issues and double your rewards. If you thought LEDs were meet the tech of today, Matt and his scientists have developed the perfect light for flowering plants with far less cost and heat. And the results? Let's just say I appear at a lot of events with the masters of indoor horticulture, and the harvests I saw from Lush LED Lighting were big, tight, sticky, and very effective. Check out LushLEDlighting.com right now and tell them Radical Russ sent you. Double your rewards and lower your expenses with Lush LED Lighting. I'm Radical Russ Belville, and I want to thank you for listening to 420 Radio. We couldn't survive without you and our sponsors, and I'd like you to check out one of our prime sponsors, the National Cannabis Coalition. I've been working with NCC since June of 2012, and I'm proud to be part of the team they have assembled. National Cannabis Coalition is building the partnerships with reformers, lawmakers, and industry we need to be successful. Visit the National Cannabis Coalition website at nationalcannabiscoalition.com or the easier-to-remember ncc420.com. That's where you'll get the exclusive first look at my radical rants, as well as informative articles from the nation's top cannabis pundits. Visit ncc420.com today, and if you have your phone handy, text Russ to 420-420 to support NCC and 420 Radio.
It's a free text message that helps us help you end adult marijuana prohibition. Learn more at ncc420.com, and thanks for supporting independent marijuana legalization public radio.
Welcome back, everybody. 10 after the hour. Radical Russ here, Toker Talk Radio, where you are the voice of the marijuana nation. Our phone lines are open at 971-533-7111. And don't feel like, because I'm in the middle of a rant or something, that you can't just call in. You can call in. I may put you on hold for a little bit. Just a little bit. But we'll get you on. It'll be good stuff. All right, so I wanted to do a little bit more of the debunking that so desperately needed to be done for some of the positions here. Now, the judge who opened up, she was with the drug courts, and so she had to say that she was taking no personal position, but that the NADCP, which is the National Association of Drug Court Professionals, do take a position and recommend against legalization of marijuana. Surprise! Gee, I can't imagine why drug courts wouldn't support ending about half of their customers. I don't get that. But anyway, she did point out that in her drug court, which is a start court, and she told a story of some recovering addict, and again, if you know my opinion on drug courts, it's like, if you are committing a crime because of your addiction, right? Like, you're addicted to heroin, so you went and stole some, right? And we can tell from your history that obviously your addictions are causing you to be this criminal person. But I'm all for the drug court system. I'm all for getting people the help they need. My problem is with this, we caught you for pot, therefore you need a drug court. Right? That's where I have the problem. Can you imagine how clogged drug courts would be if everyone we caught with beer had to go to drug court for an evaluation? Make sure they're not an alcoholic? Anyway, but she was very nice, and she did compliment me on my radio voice. And we got to talking about how attorneys in court often mumble and talk real quietly, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, and the jury can't hear anything. And she's like, you got a good voice, good booming radio voice. And I said, well, good. I should come to your court someday. And I can say, Your Honor, you should let these marijuana smokers go free on Sunday. So we kind of laughed about that. Anyway, let me get to debunking. I'm going to start in the order that we appeared. Of course, I did my presentation, which you just saw in the last hour. I was followed up by Dr. Resnick, the addiction psychiatry head at the VA Medical Center here in Portland. And his presentation was called Medical, with scare quotes, Marijuana, the Evidence, right? First thing he wanted to point out, he kind of gave a brief description of the three different types of plants, indica, sativa, ruderalis, and the fact that they produce THC and the theory as to why they produce THC. And the evolutionary theory is that they synthesized THC originally as a way of dealing with pests, keeping pests away. The problem I had is with the way Dr. Resnick explained it. He said, cannabis synthesizes these poisons like nicotine, like a tobacco plant synthesizes nicotine to kill pests. And you can't jump in on these things, but had I been able to jump in, I would have said, poisons can kill you, right, Doc? Anything in the pot that's going to poison me? No. He also had to point out that, it's not your father's Woodstock weed, people. It's not your father's Woodstock weed. It's different than it was in the 60s, right? And then he goes to point out that it's got the increased potency. Now, to his credit, he did not jump on the Kevin Sabet, it's 5 times, 7 times, 11 times more potent. He did stick with the facts that it's about twice as potent, just on the average seizures, which really doesn't mean much, okay? What average potency means is it means that given a whole bag of buds, if you reached in and picked one, chances are its potency would be this, right? It does not mean the bud will be that potency. Just like if I had a bag full of M&Ms and there were 60 red M&Ms in there and 10 green ones, it means that the average M&M is red or kind of reddish green, but red with a green tint. But most of the time you pick a bud out or pick an M&M out, you're going to get a red one, right? And so that's what these seizure potency things really mean. It's just what marijuana they're catching. Okay? Again, back to the M&Ms. If I went to Van Halen's backstage room, the green room for Van Halen, who famously in their rider had a contract agreement that their backstage room had to have a bowl of M&Ms with no brown ones in it. No brown M&Ms at all, right? So if it's my job to seize M&Ms and I go backstage at the Van Halen show and I seize M&Ms and you ask me about the content of M&Ms, I'm going to tell you, well, M&Ms are a very colorful candy. You never see an earth tone. You never see brown with M&Ms. But if I went and raided the convenience store down the street and got their M&Ms, well, I'm going to find more brown M&Ms, right? Similarly, if I do a raid up here in Portland, Oregon, and I seize a whole bunch of weed, chances are it's going to be real good weed. If I do a raid in Enid, Oklahoma, and I seize some weed, chances are it's going to be some Mexican brickweed, right? So if the cops spend more time seizing Mexican brickweed, the average potency is going to go down. If the cops spend more time seizing hydroponic operations and medical marijuana grows, the seizures average is going to go up. So it's a useless statistic. And it's even more useless when you realize that the government approves a Schedule 3 cannabinoid called Marinol that's a 100% pure THC with no cannabidiol. And I couldn't wait to jump down the doctor's throat on this, but I never got a chance to get to it because he even started talking about cannabidiol and its anti-anxiety effects. And later on in the presentation, when someone brought up Marinol, the cop brought up Marinol, I jumped right on that with the whole self-titration and the cancer patient puking, can't swallow a Marinol pill, etc. But as well, I wanted to tell him, look, I smoke pot. I smoke a lot of pot. I've smoked pot every day for the past decade and every week for the past 2 decades, okay? I smoke a lot of pot. The worst high I ever had was a 5 milligram Marinol pill. 5 is the lowest dose they'll give you, by the way. 5 milligrams of Marinol gave me all of the bad effects that you always hear the opponent stereotype about marijuana. It gave me the anxiety, the paranoia, the depression, suicidal ideation, kind of nauseous feeling. It was awful. And again, it's because it doesn't have that CBD that the doctor had just mentioned was the anti-anxiety. Another point that the doctor made was that there's 80 psychoactive cannabinoids that we know of, which is more than I'd heard. I heard there's like 64, but whatever. There's a lot of psychoactive cannabinoids. But I thought that was misleading in that most of the cannabinoids are not psychoactive. There's 80 cannabinoids that are medically beneficial. THC is psychoactive. THCV is psychoactive to some extent. THCA can be synthesized and become psychoactive and so on. But CBD, CBN, CBL, CBG, all that stuff, non-psychoactive. And then he had to point out that there's thousands of chemicals in smoked cannabis. Thousands. Oh, thousands of chemicals in smoked cannabis. Oh, yeah, and there's thousands of atoms in an M&M. I mean, just because it's chemical doesn't mean it's bad. The question is, does it cause harm in the long run? What else did he bring up? Oh, this was wonderful. He brought up the problem of synthetic THC, K2 and spice, and described the synthetic cannabinoids and so forth, and how they're harsher and have led to more emergency room entries and so on. And, it took all my willpower to not just jump up and say, no pot smoker in his right mind would smoke synthetic THC, except for A, it's not illegal, and B, people can't catch it on the drug tests. It's prohibition itself that led to synthetic THC. You legalize pot, the whole market for spice and K2 falls, man. Just bottom falls right out of it. He also had a great phrase where he was talking about the polar differences of people on drug policy. And I thought this was a good phrase. He says there's a difference between psychotropic hedonism and pharmacologic Calvinism. I thought that was a great term. Psychotropic hedonism, he says, is people that say, hey, chemicals exist. Since they exist and they make me feel good and they do things, we should be able to use them. That would be me. And pharmacologic Calvinism, which says, no, like the Puritans, right? You've got to work for your pleasure. You've got, drugs are cheating. It's cheating to use drugs. You're not natural. You're not naturally achieving your highs. That's pharmacological Calvinism. I like those terms. I'll be using those in the future. All right, we got to take a 20 after break because union rules. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit about the placebo effect, the difference between cannabis and tobacco smoke, driving, short-term memory loss, paranoia, cognitive impairment, debunked 8 IQ points, and amotivational syndrome. They threw the whole gamut of reefer madness at me. We'll be right back with the debunks after this.
The law offices of Omar Figueroa would like to remind you to stand up for your rights. Please do not give up your precious liberties. There's nothing wrong with standing up for our constitutional rights, and in fact, it's the only way to honor the Constitution that recognizes our natural rights. Treat law enforcement with respect, and respect the Constitution by standing up for your rights. If you are detained or arrested, stand up for your rights by repeating, I respectfully invoke all my legal and constitutional rights. I do not consent to any search and seizure, I want to remain silent, and I want to speak to my attorney, Omar Figueroa. Omar Figueroa has more than a decade of experience in federal and California courts and graduated from Yale University, Stanford Law School, and Trial Lawyers College. Please contact the law offices of Omar Figueroa at 415-489-0420 or 707-829-0215 or on the web at www.omarfigueroa.com.
Let him bring in the beat.
Adam Hand of Handmade Apparel produces quality custom designs for t-shirts, hats, and other apparel. Handmade Apparel is the official design shop for 420 Radio, The Russ Belville Show, Ganja John, and Cascadia Concentrates, among many clients who rely on Adam Hand for everything from short-run custom projects to full-run clothing lines. Adam's meticulous designs are individually crafted and screened in vibrant, high-definition color. Visit handmadeapparel.biz to browse the selection of handmade gear or to get a personal quote for your own designs. Handmade Apparel, a proud supporter of 420radio.org.
Let him bring in the beat.
Marijuana legalization is always on here at 420radio.org. Check out our weekday noon lineup, including some great shows from women activists, starting on Mondays with A Different View with Jennifer Alexander and Iva Cunningham, featuring guests from Normal Women's Alliance and Moms for Marijuana. On Tuesday, The Libra Lounge, featuring Lively Libra and Mr. Libra, two educators from the heart of Iowa. On Wednesdays, we welcome Cannabis Network Radio with David Kowalski from Tampa, Florida, giving us a perspective from deep in the South. Canna Truths joins us on Thursdays at noon with Denton Ramsey exploring legalization deep in the heart of Texas. And on Fridays, we come back to Portland, Oregon with Cannabis Common Sense featuring Paul Stanford and Casper Leach, one of America's longest-running marijuana legalization cable access programs. It's always marijuana legalization right here at 420radio.org.
All right, 23 after the hour, Toker Talk Radio is on the air. Coming up after this hour, Jorge Cervantes TV with some great grow video. 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, replays of Russ Belville Show and Toker Talk Radio. And then at 8 o'clock, brand new episode of Big Daddy Fink's Funky Roller Rink. Yeah. That's right, baby. We got some funky tunes coming up tonight, 8 p.m. Pacific. Only on 420radio.org. The Funky Roller Rink is in the hizzy. For shizzy. All right, that's enough of that. Don't you love it that we do our stuff on vinyl? It's so old school. All right, let's welcome to the phone lines here. Electric Bob is calling in. How you doing, Bob?
Hey, how you doing, Russ?
I'm fantastic. What's on your mind?
I just wanted to actually talk about these synthetics. I used to work at a smoke shop, so I have a lot of knowledge about it.
Oh, yeah. All right.
We made a living off of that. It was ridiculous. And since it's Arizona, everyone's getting busted. We would sell that like crazy. It's ridiculous. We would probably go through a box, and I was thinking the whole time, if it were illegal here, we could be making money and not giving out this crap.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just unknown, untested, and the thing is these, when they make these synthetic cannabinoids, right, they make, and this applies for other drugs too, when they make synthetic agonists they call them. When they're trying to test an animal or a human, they need to really trip that circuit, if you get my drift, right? They're going to make it super potent, turbocharged, if you will, because they don't got a lot of time. They want to make sure they get results, right? So a lot of these synthetic cannabinoids being sprayed onto God knows what, man, the difference between half a spray and 3/4 of a spray can knock you out.
Exactly. And you don't even know what's in it. There was warehouses getting busted here, and they showed there would be like barrels of just random chemicals, and it's all research chemicals that no one even has a clue.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're just like, oh, this is like marijuana. I might as well just sell it since there's a market for it since prohibition.
All right. Now I have a theory here, and I'm going to see if you can prove it as to the demographic or the audience for that K2 spice. I'm guessing people coming in to buy most everything else, cool, laid back, some long hair, some tattoos, some piercings. People coming in to buy K2 spice, little different?
Yeah, you could say that. It was mostly people that were on probation or people that didn't have money since the stuff's so cheap. You can get a 3-gram bottle for $5.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just because I unfortunately I had none one day and I was like, screw it, I might as well just try it, and it was horrible.
Yeah.
It was the worst experience ever. I took one hit and it made me nauseous, made me want to throw up, and I swear to never do it again after that.
Yeah. But that price, how much was it? 3 grams in a bottle? Is that what you said?
Yeah, it was a little 3-gram bottle. We'd usually sell them from anywhere from $5 to $10, depending on the brand name.
Okay.
And they would have like crazy brand names like Smoking Camel, and then the warehouse we went to, they had the fake, the other fake stuff, the 8 balls, and they labeled it as glass cleaner. We never bought the stuff because my boss was like, I'm not selling that here.
Yeah.
And he didn't even want to sell the spice, but it made so much money that we were forced to, you know?
Yeah. And think of this, right? Because like, an 1/8 of weed on the streets of Arizona, like what, $40, 50?
No, $60 usually.
All right, $60.
Even dispensaries are charging $60.
Jeez. All right, so $60 an 1/8 for the real thing, and about $10 for an 1/8 of the fake stuff.
Yeah, just about. Or if you get brick weed, that's $60 an ounce.
Right. Okay. So what we have, when we look at that price breakdown, why would synthetic cannabis, where you have to actually synthesize and put some energy into it to make it, why would it be so much cheaper than the one that you can just grow? Well,
because the chemicals, you can order them so cheap from China.
Yeah.
They both order them for like $100 and they get like pounds.
Yeah.
And that'll last them forever.
And because they're legal chemicals, you can buy them legally. And the point I'm trying to get to is that price of $10 for the 1/8 is what weed ought to cost.
Yeah, I was about to say it because I think a while back there was a story about it would be 2 cents an ounce if it was fully legal, 100% legal in the country.
Yeah, they're $2 an ounce. Yeah.
$2 an ounce. Yeah, that would be great because out here you're looking $200 to $300 for an ounce of medical.
And that's wholesale, at the grower, but still, even if you marked it up twice at every step, along the way, couldn't get much more than $10. The way Dale Geringer from California Normal, he's a PhD who studied this stuff. The way he took a look at this was to say, well, what is it about cannabis? Now, take away the illegality of it, but what about producing it would be any different than producing, cigar tobacco or tea or any other leaf crop, really? What would be much different? And the answer is nothing.
It's easier to grow. It's called weed for a reason. Tobacco is hard to grow.
Precisely.
And that's cheaper. You try to grow tobacco and do it fully, you're going to have a headache.
And that's something where I really wish the opponents and the people that are afraid of legalization could get it. And I've said this before, that's like, if you really, really, really wanted to reduce marijuana use among all people, but especially children, make it as legal as dandelions. Make it as legal as zucchini. Make it so that the ounce costs $1 or $2, and it's so ubiquitous and everywhere that nobody gives a shit about it. It's like, who argues about dandelions? Who argues about, that kind of shit? Nobody cares.
Yeah, well, even beer and tobacco.
They're perfect examples.
And drug dealers don't ID. I still get ID'd. I'm almost 26. I'm still getting ID'd for cigarettes. I need to quit, but I'm still getting ID'd for them.
Well, there you go. And I haven't been carded in a while, damn it, but that's a very, very good point.
I'd card you, Russ, just to make you feel better.
Thank you. I feel good about that. And that is still the point that I wish that I could get across, is that if you stopped worrying about it so much and just legalized it, number one, that whole forbidden fruit, danger aspect to it that entices young teen boys would be gone.
It would be cheaper, and there wouldn't be anyone getting arrested for it.
Yeah. We already see it in the medical marijuana states where, the teen perception of marijuana, and this is something the opponents bring up a lot, too.
Well, it's not that great here in Arizona. I can tell you that for sure.
Yeah.
It's $300 regardless to get your card.
Right.
Here in Arizona. And who has $300 to blow like that?
Yeah. Well, not everybody.
Not many people. So it's like, I have $300. I can go get a lot for this, or I can go get a card and be broke.
Right.
Which one are you going to make?
Right. And then, they'll say, that there's the crime, well, there wouldn't have been the crime if you'd have made it, accessible for the patient to be able to be on the program.
Yeah, exactly. And there's nothing for people with disabilities. There's no kind of discount at all.
Oh my. Yeah.
Yeah, there's no discount for anyone, SSI, SSD, anything. You pay to pay.
That's one of the things.
And then on top of that, you pay $125 to go to the doctor, and then the state wants another $125 regardless.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's one of the things about medical marijuana that's always perplexed me, is that if the idea is that we're helping the sick and disabled here, then that shit should be free for them.
Or at least, if you're going to make some money, make it $10, $20, $30.
Right.
I think up in Denver, it's what, $90, $35 or something like that?
Yeah. Yeah.
In Oregon, it's you said $20.
Well, no, in the way Colorado's law is written, I think, was it Colorado or Michigan, but one of those tied the fees directly to the operation of the program. So every so often they audit it, and it's like, oh, well, if we have this much surplus, we have to lower the fees.
Yeah, exactly.
In Oregon, it was $100 for fees. We kept running $1 million surplus every year. The legislature went, oh, well, we can balance the budget of drinking water, and we can balance the budget of healthy children program and midwives and all this other crap, and then jack the price. Then jack the price up to $200.
Paying for that?
Well, yeah, and then jack the price up to $200, and only recently did they just pass that $20 SSI, but still, it's $50 for people on food stamps and $60 for people who are, what was the other? One of the other disability measures, right? So, yeah, that's the problem with medical. The problem with medical is it still forces there to be hoops to jump through and somebody to adjudicate who's sick enough and who's not sick enough, when really it should just be legal, and the people who like to get high can get high, and the people who need it medically can get as much as they need to use.
Exactly. You don't have to worry about, am I a gram over an ounce? Am I going to get busted for this?
Yeah. Hey, let's add to our call here. We've got Gothic Prophet joining us on the line. How you doing, Gothic?
Hey, Gothic.
Hey, Ross. I didn't really want to derail the conversation you guys were having about synthetics, but I did want to give you a correction for your earlier news story.
Oh, okay.
The one you were mentioning about out of Arkansas, and you said that there was an Ohio medical bill that was rejected?
Yeah.
That's not true. The bill that was recently rejected was actually a legalization initiative.
Aha. Okay, let me check.
And their summary didn't add up to every point they had and some other bullshit.
Okay, well, that is, we got to get a hold of Mike Riggs out there at Reason.com. He said it recently rejected a ballot measure on medical marijuana, but let me check no, it links back to a story on rejecting legalization. So that's just a typo or a mistake on Mike's part there. So, yeah, sorry about that. Thanks for the correction.
No problem.
All right, so let's tell you what. I'm going to take a break here, and I want to thank you guys for calling in. I got to get to this radical rant next, but before I let you go ahead and wrap it up. Whatever you wanted to say out there, Bob.
I was going to talk about dispensaries, but I since I can, I'm just going to say everyone have a nice night, toke it up, and be safe.
All right. Thanks so much for calling in. And after the rant, we'll have some more time to talk as well if anyone wants to dial back in and give us a ring. But at this point, I got to take a break and get my rant muscles stretched out for some more ranting. I'm going to rant about hemp. I don't rant about hemp very much, but this one got me. Alternet is now buying articles from me, and this article appears on Alternet today, I think. I'll have to put the link up a little bit later, but she asked me to summarize the new California hemp bill that Governor Jerry Brown just signed, and as I researched it, it just pissed me off. So here comes a rant.
We'll be right back after these messages from our 420 friendly sponsors. Support these advertisers because their ad money goes straight to the Russ Belville Show. You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation.
I'm a reefer smoking man.
Wood Pipe Smoke Shop and Speakeasy is your source for cannabis community gear in southern Wisconsin. Owners Brian and Tammy Wood are located in Kendall, just outside of Madison, and they've got everything for the smoking enthusiast, including a full assortment of pipes, water pipes, hookahs, bubblers, one-hitters, and so much more. They're open noon to 8 p.m. Monday through Saturday and can help you with your detoxification therapies as well. Call 608-466-7473 or email woodpipes@yahoo.com for more information. That's 608-466-7473 or email woodpipes@yahoo.com. And as always, go pack go.
Who would you rather your kids talk to about drugs? You? Or some guy? When your kids find out you've been lying to them about marijuana, who will they trust? Let's have a rational discussion about drug reform. Let's tax and regulate marijuana, restrict youth access, and create safer communities.
You want answers? I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore. You want answers?
You have offended my family.
I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth.
And you have offended the Shaolin Temple.
You can't handle the truth.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Radical rant.
All right, well, California has become the latest state to timidly embrace hemp legalization. With all the attention focused on the legalization of cannabis's psychoactive variety we call marijuana, it's no surprise much of the public is unaware of the developments regarding cannabis's non-drug variety we call industrial hemp. The more you dig into the issue of hemp, though, the more you'll find out that it's far wackier than the wacky tobacco. California Governor Jerry Brown just signed Senate Bill 566, which legalized industrial hemp. Sort of. The law requires the state to regulate the farming, processing, and sales of hemp for oilseed and fiber just as soon as the federal government says it's okay. It's like California's at the hemp race starting line with, on your marks, get set, and they're just waiting for the feds to say go. Now, the state's voters weren't that timid in 1996 when they legalized marijuana for medicinal purposes through ballot initiative. But you know, the legislature wasn't shy about passing Senate Bill 420 in 2003 either, with then-Governor Gray Davis signing it, despite its conflicts with federal drug laws. In polling, the state's voters were supporting the historic Prop 19 marijuana legalization measure in 2010, until the legislature passed and then-Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger signed a marijuana decriminalization measure to lessen the urgency for outright legalization. The governor didn't seem to mind that he was lowering penalties for a federally criminal drug. But the hemp issue in California seems not to have caught the imagination of ballot initiative activists or the general public. The legislature has hammered away at this issue, passing bills in 2002, 2006, 2007, 2008, and 2011, which were all subsequently vetoed by the aforementioned governors Davis, Schwarzenegger, and Brown. How is it they could sign laws increasing access and lessening penalties for drug cannabis and veto laws legalizing non-drug cannabis? Ha! Now, in his veto statement on the 2011 hemp measure, Governor Jerry Brown wrote, quote, "Federal law clearly establishes that all cannabis plants, including industrial hemp, are marijuana, which is federally regulated controlled substance. Failure to obtain a permit from the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration prior to growing such plants will subject a California farmer to federal prosecution." End quote. Farmers facing federal prosecution for hemp. Yet there are plenty of California medical marijuana farmers who have been federally prosecuted, even as they followed the 2008 medical marijuana guidelines that Jerry Brown himself wrote up as Attorney General. So now we've got Governor Jerry Brown signing the 2013 iteration of the hemp bill that keeps hemp's legality in limbo until the federal government gives the go-ahead, which maybe it already has. On August 29th, the Department of Justice released its long-awaited response to the legalization of drug cannabis in Washington and Colorado. The feds explained that they will likely allow state marijuana legalization to move forward with, quote, "the expectation that states will implement strong and effective regulatory and enforcement systems that will address the threat those state laws could pose to public safety, public health, and other law enforcement interests," end quote. And so long as the states are preventing distribution to minors, criminal profits, diversion to other states, drug trafficking, violence and firearms use, stoned driving, growing on public lands, and marijuana possession on federal property, they say Washington and Colorado will be left alone. So, if the White House is going to allow Washington and Colorado to grow, buy, sell, and use drug cannabis, how could this not apply to California's regulation of non-drug cannabis? It's maddening. And California is not the only state to pass one of these, well, it's okay if the feds say so, hemp legalization laws. 9 other states, Colorado, Kentucky, Maine, Montana, North Dakota, Oregon, Vermont, Washington, and West Virginia, have also passed such laws. But a few of these states are now tired of waiting for the feds to say, go. Maine and West Virginia lawmakers enrolled bills this year to remove their law's requirement for federal licensure. And, of course, Colorado addressed the problem when it passed Amendment 64, legalizing all marijuana, which also directed the legislature to regulate hemp. And just this week, the first legal hemp crop in 60 years was harvested by hand in southeast Colorado. There are 30 countries in the world that allow legal cultivation of industrial hemp, and yet they still ban the production of marijuana to one degree or another. The United States stands alone among industrialized nations in banning both drug cannabis and non-drug cannabis, but still allows the importation of harvested hemp and hemp seeds for making soaps, nutritional products, building materials, clothing, and more. Canada and China are more than willing to keep supplying our industries with hemp and taking all the jobs and profits that come from that trade imbalance. With the issuance of the August 29th Cole memo, with legalization in 2 states and medical marijuana now in 20 states, you'd think the legalization of industrial hemp would be a no-brainer. How does the Drug Enforcement Administration get away with administering the enforcement of laws against non-drugs? God, it's like our lawmakers still don't seem to get that you can't hide marijuana plants in hemp fields. Cross-pollination ruins them both. And you can never smoke enough hemp to get anything other than a headache. I mean, even with extraction and concentration techniques, it would require so much hemp as to be completely infeasible. While these states meekly pass laws designed not to offend the governors who fear the federal government, we continue to miss out on producing nature's most digestible protein for humans, strongest fiber for clothing, most renewable source of fuel for vehicles, and a carbon negative source of cheap recyclable building material. America's struggling farmers are ready to start growing hemp now, and it is unconscionable and, in my opinion, unconstitutional to prevent them from doing so. Now, I've never read of a constitutional challenge to the federal ban on hemp, and I'm no lawyer, so perhaps my theory here is way off base. But I just don't understand how banning hemp farming isn't a blatant violation of the 9th Amendment. Now, if you recall your Bill of Rights, you'll know this as the short little amendment that reads, quote, "The enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people," end quote. And the way I understand that is just because the founders wrote many of our rights into the Constitution, that didn't mean it was an exhaustive list. There are still other rights retained by the people that aren't mentioned. Now, certainly, in a country founded by hemp farmers, who wrote on hemp paper, who swore allegiance to a hemp flag, and required cultivation of hemp by law, don't you think the people would retain a right to grow hemp? The father of our country, George Washington, wrote, quote, "Make the most of the Indian hemp seed and sow it everywhere," end quote. He did not add, well, if the federal government says you can. We need some governors with some cojones. We need legislators with cojones. Dare the DEA to come in and shut down hemp fields. Dare them! Let's get this issue out. Try to have them explain why it was so dangerous to have a non-drug crop being grown.
It's simply business. It's simply business. It's simply business, you know why they won't let us grow. It's simply business.
We'll be right back after these messages from our 420 friendly sponsors. Support these advertisers because their ad money goes straight to the Russ Belville Show. You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation.
It's simply business. It's simply business. It's simply business, you know why they won't let us grow. It's simply business. It's simply business, you know why they won't let us grow. It's simply business.
What makes something funny? How does humor impact health and psychological well-being? How can you incorporate humor into everyday life? A concise, reader-friendly introduction to an important but often underappreciated topic in modern psychology, Humor 101 explains the role of comedy, jokes, and wit in the sciences and discusses why they are so important to understand. Psychology professor Dr. Mitch Earlywine draws from his personal experiences in stand-up comedy to focus on how humor can regulate emotion, reduce anxiety, and diffuse tense situations, expose pretensions, build personal relationships, and much more. He irreverently debunks the pseudoscience on the topic of humor and leaves readers not only funnier, but better informed. It's part of the Psych 101 series from Springer Publishing, Humor 101 by Dr. Mitch Earlywine, Ph.D. 420radio.org presents Jorge Cervantes TV, featuring Jorge Cervantes from Barcelona, Spain, The master grower has dropped the disguises and brings you the best grow tips from around the world every Thursday at 5 p.m. Pacific, with replays Friday at 8 a.m., Saturdays at 1 p.m., Sundays at 7 a.m., and Mondays at 3 a.m. right here at 420radio.org.
I'm Sub Cool from Team Green Avenger. At TGAgenetics.com, we are working on the leading edge of medical strains. Our strains are rigorously tested for THC, CBD, THCV, and other critical cannabinoids. Know your grow. Check out our genetic diversity at TGAgenetics.com, the home of Jelly Bean, Jack the Ripper, Vortex, and other award-winning cannabis strains.
Welcome back, everybody. 10 minutes till, and we've got Electric Bob back on the line. How you doing, Bob?
I'm doing good. I just wanted to do a quick talk about dispensaries and the medical program here in Arizona.
Please do. Dispensaries in Arizona. You're on.
They're horrible here, actually. they're nothing like Denver or Colorado or any other states. It's like Fort Knox, basically, because Arizona law requires...
Sorry, they get the loser sound for the dispensaries in Arizona.
Oh, we definitely get the loser sound. I'm on the Arizona medical forums, and there was a story about a guy who went to the first dispensary that opened here, and they wouldn't sell him a gram. They would only do an eighth and above.
Oh, their minimum size was an eighth?
Yeah, the minimum size was an eighth, and he told them, I only have I want a gram to just see what you guys are doing, and they absolutely said no.
See, that's somebody, that sounds shady to me. Like, if your stuff is good enough, you want the samples out there. You want people to know how good it is.
Yeah, exactly. Well, they just want to make money here. It's not about helping anyone. They just want to make money. That's all it is.
Yeah.
Because the dispensaries are trying to get the clubs shut down, because the clubs are more like a true dispensary than the real dispensaries.
Right.
Because you walk into a dispensary here, it's like, well, I'm thinking other cities you have to buzz in and everything, but you buzz in, you go into a door that's locked. All cannabis is kept behind the counter. You can't look at it. There's a board with everything on the list, and you buy it, and that's that.
Jeez.
Everything's done behind a glass window. All the transactions.
Wow.
It's ridiculous.
I had some experience in Scottsdale. I got to go to one of those patient lounges, the Lax Lounge. It was in Tempe. Anyway,
the vapor room.
I think it was. Yeah. But
yeah, I've passed by that place a few times.
And I got to say, you're right about that. In that, I had to be buzzed in. They wanted to see my Oregon medical card, because Arizona's got reciprocity. And but yeah, it did seem, of course, my perspective, having been to dispensaries in California and Colorado, is the very big high-end thing. But for what, resources they had, they seemed to be doing it in a very patient-friendly way.
Was this a dispensary or just a patient club?
Well, it was a patient lounge, but I don't know if they were dispensing or not.
Okay, yeah, because the dispensaries, because we have the clubs here that do patient to patient.
Yeah.
But the actual dispensaries is where it's everything, like you can't look at your medicine beforehand.
Right.
You just have to go on what they tell you.
Right. That's what I was saying. Is what I was at was not an official Arizona dispensary. I was saying I was at one of those clubs, and I can see why, from what you're saying,
okay.
why the dispensaries would want to shut down the clubs, because the clubs are being run the way the customers want. They just fail to understand this constant, prohibition of marijuana and demonization of it has made them lose their minds with respect to how healthcare is conducted, how business is conducted, how people shop and buy things. Customers want to be able to, it's produce, man. People want to see the carrot before they buy the carrot.
Exactly. It's a vegetable. Might as well be.
Imagine if you went to the grocery store and you went to the produce, and it wasn't all out there for you to see. There was just a glass window, and you had to go up the window, and there'd be a list. You can get carrots or broccoli or cauliflowers or Brussels sprouts, and you just have to take what they hand you.
It's basically a prison commissary at that point.
Yeah, the prison commissary of weed. No kidding. God.
Yeah, it basically is. And it doesn't help that in Arizona any amount is a felony regardless. And they consider, like, say you get pulled over and you have a seed in your pocket, that's considered one fully grown plant under Arizona law.
Yep.
And also, marijuana and cannabis are separate under Arizona law. Cannabis is considered the flower. Marijuana is considered the oils and essentials, which is just retarded.
Yeah.
They should be, and also your BHO extracts, you're going to get way more time here for that. It's just like the crack.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing.
Yeah.
Even though it's the same thing, it's just an extract.
A lot of people don't know that. You need to check your local state hash and concentrate laws, and normal.org has got a great resource for that. But in a lot of states, even that are real marijuana friendly, like say in
Even
Ohio,
in Colorado, it's illegal.
Yeah, or say like Ohio, where the 100 grams is decriminalized. You can have a bag with not a bag, but you can have 3 ounces on you, and it's just a ticket. But if you have a speck of hash, it's a felony.
Wow.
Yeah, it's just crazy, man.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And because we have C4AZ here trying to get it legalized, and I unfortunately don't see it happening because our medical barely passed. 5,000 votes.
This is the thing. There's a lot of well-meaning reformers out there that I call them it's like Spanky and our gang. Hey, gang, let's put on a show. And they're well-meaning, and it's a great show, but they don't nothing happens, right?
And it doesn't also help that MMP totally screwed us this year because they were going to put money in, but then they said, "Oh, we want to wait till 2016 for everyone."
Right. Yeah, that's a whole nother rat with MPP, and they're the ones that gave you that 25-mile halo rule. So the only damn place a patient can grow marijuana is Tuba City.
Yeah, I've been to Tuba City. The GPS routed us through like Utah to go to Denver, and we passed through Tuba City. It's nothing. It's one road in, one road out, and there's some stores. That's about it. There's no Walmarts, there's no Targets, there's no big box stores at all.
No,
it's nothing but trailers and mountains.
And folks, if you're wondering why I'm bringing up Tuba City, up on the Arizona website for their Department of Health medical marijuana program, they actually have a map they've put up with the green circles of 25-mile radiuses so that you can tell where you're allowed to grow marijuana. And of course, anywhere you look that's populated in Arizona, you can't grow now because there's a dispensary.
Yeah, you can't. And there's a thing in Arizona law that says you don't have to be a part of any medical program, and that should help us with the home grow. But the judges are all saying nope, because you guys just want to grow for yourself because you just want to, because you want to divert it to people, which is a stupid argument. If a person doesn't have the money to afford it, they should be able to grow.
Right.
And people should be able to grow anyway. The plant pot's going to run out and kill people.
Yeah, and this is something that I had had a discussion with someone in law enforcement a while back about this, and that it was that criminals are coming in from Florida and they'll set up shop here and they'll grow for $800 a pound, or they'll buy it for $1,500 a pound, and they'll take it back to Florida and sell it for $4,000 a pound. And I'm like, that's Florida's problem. That's
exactly.
fucking Florida's
How
problem.
is that our problem?
Now I think that there's a validity to that because you can't outlaw the law of supply and demand. It's going to happen. So the only possible solution is a national one, but that's got even less traction than legalizing in the states.
Yeah, and what these people fail to realize is that if it was fully legal, they wouldn't have these problems.
Right.
An ounce would probably be about $50.
Yeah. And
if everyone's growing, the market's going to be flooded. Prices are going to go down, and I'm pretty sure a big majority of people are just going to choose to home grow.
We do see this to some extent with legalized tobacco when it's overtaxed. For example, a pack of smokes in New York City goes for $10 to $12 because of all the taxes.
Pack of smokes here is almost $7.
Yeah, you can get a pack of smokes in Virginia or North Carolina for like $2.50. Okay.
I was in Colorado. It was $4.50 a pack for Camels.
Right, and the disparity is so great and the distance so small that it's actually profitable for people to rent a U-Haul van, drive it down to Virginia or North Carolina, load it up with cartons of smokes, drive it back to Manhattan, and sell cartons on the streets. It's actually profitable enough. But that's the overtaxation that does that.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Theme came up on us.
It's all good. I'll probably call back in tomorrow.
Yeah, man. It's great talking to you, and we encourage everyone to call in because this is a place you can rant, you can vent, you can get stuff off your chest, ask people other questions. Thanks for calling in, Electric Bob.
Cool. I just wanted to say one more thing. Be safe and don't break your bongs.
There you go. All right, folks, that's all the time we got for today. Thanks for joining us. Coming up next, Jorge Cervantes TV, and at 8 p.m. we got Big Daddy Fink's Funky Roller Rink. So make sure you check that out. For everyone here at 420radio.org, thanks for joining us. Check out the website, 420radio.org. Buy something in the shop. Donate. There's a donate button at the top. Become a VIP member. Keep us on the air. I'm Radical Russ. Until next time, take care of each other, tokers.
This is the Russ Belville Show. The Russ Belville Show is blogging and podcasting daily at radicalruss.com.
You plant it, you grow it, you dry it,